Hawaii, a paradise in the Pacific. But here's what's strange. Of the 1.4 million people who live here, almost 1 million are packed onto Oahu, while the rest of the islands, including the massive Big Island, are nearly empty. Why are some of Hawaii's most beautiful islands so empty, and what makes it nearly impossible to live there? Long before Hawaii became America's 50th state, these islands were home to thriving indigenous communities spread across the archipelago. But today, the population distribution tells a different story. With less than 10% of Hawaii's total land area, Oahu holds over 70% of its population. But what forced this dramatic concentration of people onto a single island? The answer begins with Hawaii's unique geography. While all Hawaiian islands were born from volcanic activity, their age and evolution have created vastly different landscapes. Oahu, through millions of years of erosion, developed large flat areas perfect for urban development. Its natural harbor at Pearl Harbor provided a strategic military position and commercial port, while the sheltered waters of Waikiki offered ideal conditions for early tourism. But here's what makes this situation truly fascinating. Why haven't other islands, especially the Big Island with its massive size, developed similar population centers? The Big Island faces unique challenges that have historically deterred large-scale development. Despite being the largest island at 4,028 square miles, twice the size of all other Hawaiian islands combined, roughly 70% of its land is zoned for agriculture. Another 20% is covered by recent lava flows and national parks, leaving surprisingly little space for urban development. Active volcanism on the Big Island isn't just a tourist attraction, it's a constant threat to development. The 2018 Kilauea eruption destroyed over 700 homes, demonstrating why many areas remain sparsely populated. Insurance companies often refuse coverage in high-risk volcanic zones, making it nearly impossible to secure mortgages or build new communities. Oahu, meanwhile, hasn't seen volcanic activity for over 70,000 years. This geological stability, combined with its central location and natural harbors, made it the obvious choice for Hawaii's economic center. The development of Honolulu as the state capital further concentrated government jobs, infrastructure, and economic opportunities on the island. But there's another crucial factor that keeps people on Oahu: the cost and complexity of inter-island travel. Unlike mainland states, where people can commute between cities by car, Hawaii's islands are separated by deep ocean channels. With one-way inter-island flights costing around $100, daily commuting between islands is impractical for most residents. Think about that for a moment. What happens when your only option for traveling between major population centers is by air? The result is that most businesses, healthcare facilities, and educational institutions cluster on Oahu, creating a self-reinforcing cycle that pulls more people to the island. Let's look at Maui, Hawaii's second most populated island. Despite its fame as a tourist destination, it houses only about 167,000 residents, less than a sixth of Oahu's population. The island's rugged geography limits developable land, with much of its terrain dominated by volcanic slopes and protected watersheds. But there's more to this story than just geography. Modern Maui faces a different kind of population pressure. While its resident population remains relatively low, it battles with an influx of tourists and part-time residents that strain its infrastructure and housing market. Local families often find themselves priced out by vacation rentals and luxury developments, leading to an exodus to Oahu, where job opportunities are more diverse. The housing crisis isn't unique to Maui. It's a challenge across all Hawaiian islands. However, in Oahu, the higher wages from its diverse economy help offset some of those costs. The median household income in Oahu is significantly higher than that of neighboring islands, where tourism and agriculture remain the dominant industries. Take Kauai, for instance. Known as the Garden Isle, it supports only 72,000 permanent residents despite its lush beauty. The island's strict building height limits, no structure can be taller than a mature coconut tree, about 4 stories, preserve its natural character but severely restrict housing density. Combined with limited flat land and strict coastal development rules, these regulations keep population growth in check. However, the most extreme example of Hawaii's uneven population distribution lies in Molokai and Lanai. These islands, despite their proximity to Maui, have remained remarkably underdeveloped. Molokai 7,000 residents and Lanai's 3,000 inhabitants live in communities that actively resist large-scale development, even at the cost of economic opportunities. Take Kaho'olawe, for instance, an entire island sitting empty just 6 miles from Maui's bustling shores. The smallest of Hawaii's main islands, Kaho'olawe's 45 square miles of land were once home to native Hawaiians who considered it a sacred place for cultural and navigation training. But what transformed this cultural center into an uninhabited wasteland? The answer lies in its troubled past, and it's more recent than you might think. While many assume Hawaii's uninhabited islands are this way due to natural causes, Kaho'olawe's emptiness stems from human actions. After serving as a penal colony in the 19th century, the U.S. Navy claimed the island as a bombing range following the Pearl Harbor attack. For nearly 5 decades, from 1941 to 1990, the island endured regular bombardment, becoming a testing ground for military explosives. The impact was devastating. Not only did the bombing destroy much of the island's native vegetation and archaeological sites, but it also left a dangerous legacy. Today, despite a partial cleanup that cost $400 million, experts estimate that 25% of the island remains littered with unexploded ordnance. The surface oil, already fragile from years of overgrazing by introduced livestock, was further damaged by the explosions, making revegetation extremely challenging. Looking at Hawaii's largest island again, we find another peculiar challenge: infrastructure. Despite its size, the Big Island lacks the extensive road networks, water systems, and power infrastructure that Oahu developed over decades. Building new infrastructure across vast lava fields and through protected areas isn't just expensive, it's often impossible due to environmental regulations and cultural preservation laws. This leads us to a critical question. Is the concentration of population on Oahu sustainable? Recent challenges suggest it might not be. Oahu faces growing pains with traffic congestion, overtaxed infrastructure, and a housing shortage that ranks among the worst in the nation. The median home price has soared to past $1 million, forcing many local families to crowd into multi-generational households or leave Hawaii altogether. Yet despite Oahu's challenges, the neighboring islands struggle to create viable alternatives. The Big Island's vast open spaces might seem like an obvious solution to Oahu's overcrowding, but developing these areas faces massive obstacles. Beyond the volcanic hazards, much of the island lacks basic infrastructure. Building new communities would require billions in investment for roads, water systems, and power grids, costs that would make any new housing far from affordable. Climate change adds another layer of complexity to Hawaii's population distribution. Rising sea levels threaten coastal developments on all islands, but Oahu's greater economic resources make it better equipped to adapt. With their smaller tax bases and limited infrastructure, the neighbor islands face greater challenges in building resilience against intensifying natural disasters. The tragic 2023 Maui wildfires highlighted these vulnerabilities. When disaster struck Lahaina, the limitations of living on a neighbor island became starkly clear. Emergency services were stretched thin, evacuation options were limited, and the isolated nature of the community complicated rescue efforts. On Oahu, the greater concentration of emergency resources and evacuation options provides an additional sense of security that keeps people there. This brings us to the economic reality that maintains Oahu's dominance. The island's international airport handles the majority of Hawaii's cargo and passenger traffic. Its deep water ports process most of the state's imports. Its hospitals provide the most advanced medical care in the Pacific region. When you combine these factors with the presence of major military bases providing stable jobs, it's clear why most people choose Oahu despite its crowding. Hawaii's population distribution seems unlikely to change dramatically. While initiatives exist to develop other islands, particularly the Big Island's growing Puna district, the fundamental challenges remain. Volcanic activity, limited infrastructure, strict zoning laws, and the sheer cost of development continue to concentrate most of Hawaii's population on Oahu. Looking to the future, these islands face a crucial balancing act. Modern threats like climate change can't be held at bay by simply refusing development. Yet, the lessons learned from Hawaii's more developed islands suggest that unrestricted growth isn't the answer either.